Welcome everyone to the Executive Mindset Shift webinar.
Coaching high performers to take ownership. That's what today's webinar is all about. If you're here, it's because you have that person on your team. They're brilliant, they're fast, they're the first to volunteer, they're the last ones to leave. But here's the problem. They're working themselves into the ground and you become the bottleneck. That's the problem. So you've rewarded their doing for so long that they've forgotten how to lead.
So today we're going to help you pivot. We're moving from the heroic doer to the executive thinker.
Absolutely, because the problem is they're overworked, they lead to burnout, you become the bottleneck, and we're stifling the wider growth. Their doing has been rewarded, but leading is now required. So like you said, Conroy, we're going to pivot and help teams pivot from the heroic doer to the executive thinker. So who are we? Your coaches, your expert coaches. Who are we? We are award-winning business coaches with over 30 years experience between us. We run multiple seven-figure businesses.
We've trained hundreds of leaders across the UK. And I think for us, is spending that time working on ourselves to give us the skills to be able to give you that to help you become the best you can be.
And recently we've been awarded the Gold Award for the Positive Impact Award and Bedfordshire's overall gold winner for 2026, where we're through to the national finals too. So we understand common roadblocks to team productivity, and that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to level up the leader mindset to boost business productivity.
So why do our best people struggle to transition?
It's not because they lack talent. They've hit the ceiling of individual excellence and their success is tied to their own hours. Think of it as a maths problem, because if your success is based on your hours, your output is capped at 168 hours a week. So it's a linear growth model. So it's a ceiling of individual excellence. We need to reach beyond that and not have it capped through time. So the linear growth model is all about capping by the hours and time. What we're going to look at is the executive leadership model, which is exponential multiplied by exponential growth. So it's multiplying through your impact through other people. So it's about that shift from being the engine to being the architect, moving away from the heroic doer to being that executive thinker.
The shift here is simple but brutal. You have to stop trying to be the best player on the team and start to lead the team.
And start being the best coach on the team. There's a difference between being the best player on the team to being the best coach on the team. And if you're still the one fixing the broken code,
doing everything,
writing that final email, you've hit your ceiling of individual excellence. So, we've got to move from a mindset of being the best player to the best coach.
And how do we do that, Michelle?
Well, we're going to share some shifts that are going to help people who are watching this webinar today, that tips that are going to be essential for you and your team to help create that culture of executive leadership. That's what we aim to do today. So we want to explore moving from efficiency to leverage, from subject matter expert to influencer, and from certainty to complexity. And we're going to look at those in this webinar today.
Okay, next bit. Don't just go into it. I need to catch up.
So we're here, shift one.
So shift one.
From efficiency to leverage.
Okay, we always tell our clients,
if you're the smartest person, then you're in the wrong room. And then I say, yeah.
So shift one is efficiency. We always say to our client, if you're the smartest person in that room, you're in the wrong room.
Exactly. And the coaching question should be, ask yourself or your team leaders, what system can you build to make this work happen without you? Can that work happen without you? If not, you become the bottleneck. So that's leverage. That's moving from efficiency to leverage. You're now leveraging the people within your team to help get the task done. And as a result, you're leveraging time.
So it's like creating systems that will function regardless if you're in that business or in that role. It still works smoothly regardless.
Absolutely. So you now need to think about the system. What system can you build to make this work happen without you? Automation, delegation, other people, coaching other people to do that. So you are then freed up. That's how you create leverage. And that is true leverage. And Conroy, within our business, we've created, really good systems in place that when we can go on holiday, the system and the business still runs.
Yeah, but that took us some time. So we understand that for those people who are going through that transition in wanting to create that time freedom, to create that, that organic flow within their business, it will take time. It will take trust, and it will take training up individuals to be able to do those things and putting the systems in place to make it functional. And that takes time. And that's why we've been there and we've done that. So we are the ones to be able to give you the advice and the support to get you to that place.
It is, because you're right. Trust is a big one, isn't it? Because when you stop being the doer, the heroic doer that does everything, to moving to systems in place that other people then become doers and you then become the executive thinker, that's how you create leverage. That is true leverage. Shift 2 is subject matter expert to influencer. It's mastering influence, not just knowledge. So it's not being, like you said, not being the smartest person in the room. You're not there just to showcase technical knowledge. You need to start mapping out organizational political capital. You need to move from managing people to managing influence.
And would you say that's down to the recruiting side as well, like making sure that you are recruiting the right people to fit those roles? Because what tend to happen is when you're starting to move away from that bottleneck within a business, you can sometimes recruit the wrong people that will still then
require
your time, and you giving them the okay in everything that they do.
You still become the bottleneck.
Yeah, so the recruiting is very, very crucial in making sure that you're creating the right system, you're getting the right people on board.
But this is also why this training is important, because you're now training the doers to become the executive thinkers, so you don't then have to become the executive thinker within your team or business, because you're now creating other people to be that executive thinker, not the one that's doing the thinking for your team.
Yeah.
That's how you get true leverage. You need to be creating team members that are not just your doers, but are now your executive thinkers. That they're moving from a subject matter expert to influence. And yes, you do need those people within the team that know what to do, that become that technical, expert subject matter. But you need to now start moving them to, transitioning them into executive thinkers. That's how you get true leverage. And when you start moving from managing people to managing influence, what you need is you then get a leader who understands the company's landscape and culture to navigate things to get things done faster.
Yeah, and also it's like they're sharing the same message. The message is not watered down. The ethos is not watered down. The principles and values are not watered down. You're getting the same, and it's fully embedded in the individuals that are now leading those roles.
Yes, they need to be on board and fully understand the company landscape, the vision for their particular team or for the whole business, but they need to understand that in order to drive and become that executive thinker.
Yeah.
So it's navigating those informal networks to get those results and to accelerate the results. And then shift 3, Conroy, is all about certainty to complexity. And this high performers hate ambiguity. They hate.
What do you mean by that?
They hate uncertainty. They need to know. High performers need to know exactly what they need to do. They need to be told, but it's about training them to actually understand. In order to move to executive thinker, you have to embrace those grey areas. You have to embrace the things that you don't know, because you're not going to know and have all the answers at that time. So, but high performing people generally want things to be certain. They want to get on with the job and get it done.
One of the things that helps us within our organization is that we coach people to fail forward. So we're big on trying things and giving things a go, because that's the only way to learn. If you're not failing, you're not progressing. And if you look at the top 10 companies in the world and kind of understand the founders behind that, how many times have they failed along the way? You've got to fail to know what to not to do and how to then do it better going forward.
And failure, if you're not failing, you're not making progress.
No.
So failure is a big part of developing your team in order for them to recognize where they've gone wrong and to do it right the next time.
And embrace it.
Embrace it, because leadership thrives in complexity. It doesn't thrive in certainty. It's training up your staff to understand you're not going to have all the answers right now.
No, you're going
to
fail
go
many
find
times.
the answers. Get a process to find it. You're not going to, don't rely on somebody else who becomes the bottleneck to give you that answer. It's about certainty to complexity. Things aren't going to be certain. And leadership is about embracing that complexity, embracing the time when you don't know the answers, but you've got to find it.
But also being excited by that journey, because, they say the actual enjoyment on a journey of success is the bit in the middle, the failures, the challenges, the setbacks. That's where you are actually enjoying the most about the journey. So not when you achieve the goal and you're there and you have a smooth team and everything is perfect. It's that bit in the middle that's when you should be enjoying the journey and making those changes along the way and embracing the challenges.
And developing comfort with uncertainty, because most people like to stay in their comfort zone, doing the things they know because it's certain, rather than embracing uncertainty and saying, do you know what, I'm going to give this a go. I've never done it before, but I'm going to do it, or I'll find a way.
Yeah.
Because then you're moving your team from the heroic doer to the executive thinker.
And I think we're quite big on that in terms of how we help to stretch our team and our staff. We're constantly throwing them outside their comfort zone. We challenge, but they get support as well. So it's about helping them to become the best they can be. And most of the time, people are very uncomfortable in the initial stages. But we do so much around growth, mindset growth, and helping them to see themselves differently, because it's very important to stretch yourself, because that's the only way you're going to grow and develop.
And going back to what you said, not being the smartest person in the room, if you are the smartest person in the room, why on earth are you having a payroll?
That's a good answer. Very good
Why
answer.
need the people? Why have a big payroll if you are still the smartest person in the room?
Because you've been doing everything, aren't you?
Exactly.
That's a very good. That's a very good way of looking at it.
So we are going to give you a tactical approach to coaching and how to get the best out of your team, and we're going to use a framework called the S.P.A.C.E framework. So I would write this down. So in your next one-on-one, don't ask your team members, "Is it done?"
Mm-hmm.
Ask these questions instead.
So the question is, what are you doing today that your team member should be doing instead?
And that's S. That stands for status.
Mm-hmm.
The status. What are you doing today that a team member should be doing instead?
So P, is this a one-time fire or a systemic leak?
So the P, it represents the pattern. So is this just a one-time thing that you're doing and it's just a one-off? Or is this something that you're doing, the pattern, you're doing it all over and over, and there's therefore the system is not right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to look at the pattern of who's doing this work. The A stands for ambiguity. Where are you stalling because you're waiting for a perfect answer?
Mm-hmm.
The uncertainty again. Actually, what are you doing to make it certain? What are you doing to find the answer? What are you doing to get clarity and certainty? Yeah, because there's going to be complexity. There's going to be ambiguity. And it's about what you're doing to help move that decision along, get the answers that you need.
Yeah. So C is capital. Who are the key stakeholders that you haven't engaged with yet?
Yeah. And we often forget the stakeholders when we're managing the team or managing a task we've got to do. Have all stakeholders been engaged in that process?
Is that like letting them aware of what the changes, what are the things needs to happen going forward?
Yeah, it's letting everybody know, from your customers to your suppliers to your team, the wider team in the company.
And why is that? And why is that so important for them to know?
It's important because they're getting on board with the culture, the vision, what it is you aim to do. So you need to use this framework to help you develop your team into thinking about the whole thing. And often key stakeholders get forgotten about. We make a decision in a company, but we don't consult our customers. We don't consult the staff.
Mm-hmm.
We don't consult, the funders who fund the business, or we don't consult the customers to get their feedback. We just make that decision when actually an executive thinker will start to think wholly about that business. Mm-hmm. And lastly, the E is executive presence. And this is a big one for us because it's about how did your energy in that meeting, how did your vibe influence other people in that room, in that meeting?
Yeah. And it's funny because I had this conversation yesterday with a member of staff, because each person gives off a frequency, each person gives off a vibe. You can walk into a room and straight away somebody can identify what headspace you're in. Because I give you an example. If you think of a very happy, bubbly person, they walk into a room and they're super happy, they're smiling, engaging, they're saying good morning, good evening. But you get the other person that walks in, their face is serious,
heavy energy,
shoulders are dropped, they barely open their mouth. You've just spoken without even opening your mouth. So it's about what vibe and what energy are you giving off when you walk into a space. It's very important to know that, because that's the only way you can then make adjustments in how you're feeling.
And that is what takes an employee to an executive level.
What do you mean?
That behavior, what you've just described, is employee mentality to executive mentality. Executive mentality is always thinking about how am I showing up, and how am I influencing the others in the team. That's what sets people apart. That's what will move people to the executive level within a business, within a team.
Yeah, that's very important.
That's big for us.
Very big.
That's big for us in our business, but it should be big in your business too. Mm-hmm. So this S.P.A.C.E framework, let's just summarize that S.P.A.C.E framework. So the S is status. What are you doing that another team member could do? P, recognize the pattern. Is it a one-off thing that you've got to do, or is it something that it's a systemic problem, it's a systemic leak, and it falls on your table all the time? Then you need to readjust your structures and systems. The A is ambiguity. Are you just waiting for a perfect answer, or are you waiting for certainty? Because an executive thinker will embrace complexity over certainty. So the ambiguity, are you waiting for that perfect answer, or are you starting to find your own decisions, find your own answers, not waiting for someone else to give you the answer? Yeah. That's the difference from a doer to the executive thinker. The C, the capital, is who are the key stakeholders you haven't engaged with yet? Have you discussed that decision with everybody who it's going to impact? And E, that executive presence, is so important about how you are being, how you are showing up, what energy are you giving off, and how are you influencing the team members within your team. So that's a tactical approach you can use to help develop from a doer to the executive thinker. So as you can see, the slide here shows you how to apply the S.P.A.C.E framework. And the magic in all of
What's
this,
with the magic, Michelle?
instead of asking someone, is it done?
Mm-hmm.
Applying these questions, ask the question, then embrace the silence. And I always say this to you, don't I? When you ask a question, just don't talk anymore. Just wait for the silence, because it's in the silence that the magic happens. Because what you're doing is you're then letting the person that you're asking the question to think, as opposed to giving them the answers, doing the thinking for them.
And that's quite, and this is one key that I learned from Michelle many years ago. But for people who are not aware of the silence, it's like if you ask, some people cannot stand a silent room.
They want to fill every gap.
They want to fill every gap with a question and an answer. Whereas Michelle, I've seen it where she'll ask a question to somebody and that person will just pause and not say nothing, and she would do the same, because what they're doing, they're thinking, and let them answer, let them ask the question or give you the answer. But what tends to happen with most people is that because some people are so uncomfortable with the silence, they try to then answer for that person, and then you make it easier for them, and they will just say, "Oh yeah, I'll go with what you're saying." But it's about allowing that silence and getting comfortable with that pause. Say your bit, pause, and let them think, and let them give you the answer.
Embrace that silence, because that's where the magic happens, and that's where you're then coaching other people to think for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The art of coaching high performers, guiding, not doing. And the hardest part of coaching high performers is letting them fail a little.
Yeah,
that's the most important part, and we are big on that.
Absolutely, because it's one of our big things, like fail forward. If you're not failing, you are not progressing. And so many people are so uncomfortable with failure that they just sit in their comfort zone. They wait for you to give them the answer with every step they take because they're so scared of getting it wrong. We're like, try it, do it. The worst thing that can happen is that you learn a lesson of what not to do. So it's important to let people fail forward and give them that responsibility.
Yeah, and you're their navigation system. You're not their parachute. You're not their safety net. You're their navigation system to let them guide their way through their work, their tasks, their decisions. So it's shifting from giving advice to saying, hey, you should handle it like this, but instead try something like, what do you intend to get out of this? What is your desired outcome for that meeting? How do you think the stakeholders, the customers will react? How do you think the staff will react? What will conflict with that? And ask those questions so they do the thinking rather than saying, handle it like this, and it being done for them.
Yeah.
So listen 80%, talk 20% is a really good percentage.
What do you mean by that?
So asking that question, has it been done, or what do you intend to get out of this meeting, or what do you intend to get out of that action?
Mm-hmm.
Now listen. I've asked 20%. Now I'm going to be quiet and listen for their response.
Yeah, and that's one of the good things is, like, if I'm asking something of my team or a particular team or person, I always ask the question. I ask, is this done, or how are you getting on with this? Because this is an opportunity for them to also feedback on what they're doing and how they're progressing. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying you should have done this, you should have done that, you ask questions. Questions are the opening, and that's how it creates really good conversations. And typically human beings do not like being told what to do, and it's a big thing. Like, it's a natural thing within all of us. We don't like to be told what to do, and it's about finding that sweet spot of how to get the best out of an individual. But asking questions is a great way in.
Definitely ask the questions, because your doers, training them to executive leaders, those leaders should be the ones doing the heavy lifting of the problem solving, not you.
Yeah.
Your leaders that you're developing as leaders should be the ones that are doing the heavy lifting in terms of problem solving and coming up with the answers. So it's developing those leaders and making sure that they talk through the problems. But communication is key. Mm-hmm. Communication is key. You need your leaders to keep communicating, closing the loops. Having loops opened is just.
What do you mean by that? Because this is a new thing you've just thrown in there. What did you mean by closing the loop?
So you need your team to be talking to you.
Yeah.
To help.
So give us an example. So, like, you give a task to somebody.
Mm-hmm. You give a task to somebody.
What are you expecting?
For me, when I there's so much I got to do. When I delegate, I give it to people. When I give that task to someone, it's out of my head. Mm-hmm. I want that person to come back to me and close the loop and say, hey, here it is. What do you think? Yeah.
And how, so for example, you give a task to somebody on Monday to do, and you say, can I have this task done by, I don't know, 2 weeks from now? When are you expecting them to close the loop? Do you want them to give you updates on a weekly basis?
That all depends on the nature of the task given, because some tasks you can say, right, I want this task by the end of the day. Give me some feedback. Show me what you've done. Give me a draft.
So it's basically, so giving a task to somebody, are you saying that you should also give them a deadline so you can then know that by this deadline you get an update? Because sometimes you can give a task to a person and there is this open-ended task. They don't know it's an urgent task. They don't know that there's a deadline for the task.
There needs to be clear parameters.
Yeah, so it's about being clear about what your expectation is, how quickly do you want this task done, and saying to them, right, can you give me an update in 2 days' time on this?
Absolutely.
Just communicating both ways.
And being clear, very clear on your parameters, what your needs are, what your wants are, and making sure. What I generally do when I give a task to somebody, I always ask them, just repeat back to me what you think I've asked you to do, because that stops ambiguity and it gives that person the certainty, which is what they like. High performers like certainty. But if they encounter problems along the way, what I want them to do, and they come back to me and say, well, this can't be done, or this is the problem I found, I will say, go away and work it out. What needs to happen to make it happen? So I get them back thinking. So then that's when you're coaching them to become that executive thinker.
So you're saying there's two ways. Is obviously closing the loop, is being clear, asking a question. Once you've given the instruction, you then ask the question to make sure they understood what needs to happen. And secondly is put a deadline on it. So if you want it in a year's time, tell them you want it in a year's time and you want it a review in 6 months. It's being clear, because people, human beings, how we work on our own time. We have our own inner clock. We have our own expectation. We have our own way of looking at things. So people need it broken down, very simple and specific.
And clear.
And very clear.
And remember, high performers like certainty. So be very certain about what it is you want, but let them discover the problems along the way with that task. Let them solve the problems. Let them become the executive thinker at that moment.
Mindset is the foundation to all success. But it's hard enough to align your own mindset with success, let alone your whole team.
And the biggest cost in business is a disengaged team. It's not your taxes, it's not your rental costs, it's a disengaged team. And in a medium-sized business, coaching high performers to take ownership, which is that heroic doer to executive ownership, strategic thinking, is a critical gear in the machine if you want lasting transformation for your business. So we show you how to get to the next level of success by empowering high-performing teams to take ownership so you can achieve your business goals. That's the whole idea of business. That is true leverage. And because you've stayed with us to the end, we have an exclusive event offer only for those attendees today. So this package is designed to strengthen leadership, improve team performance, and create a more motivated, productive workforce. Because like we said, the biggest cost for business is a disengaged team. So what's included? You get 2 staff training workshops, 50% discount to our I Am Great development program, and a leadership at all levels training package. It's an exclusive offer. It's normally $7,997, but today we're offering it to those who attend for $2,795. This is an executive program to help elevate your employees to leadership, unlocking lasting business transformation. And like I said, investing in your team will help save costs in the long run. So moving from a disengaged team to one that's motivated, thriving, elevated, and performing at executive leadership level. So helping your people take ownership. That's the plan. That's how you get true leverage. So what's the next step in helping you build leaders within your team? So book a free consultation call with us today through the link in the chat, and we'll show you how to manage people effectively, increase your cash flow and business performance, closing the team and system gaps, improving communication and leadership, boosting productivity, well-being and morale, reducing absenteeism, creating a happier workforce, and helping you do personality profiling for better understanding of your teams. So like I said, for everyone who's attended this webinar, you'll receive that entire package that's normally priced at $7,997, and we're offering it to you today for just $2,795. That's a small investment to help elevate, build leaders in your team, and create true leverage. So I just want to say thank you for joining us today.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
When it comes to understanding coaching high performers to take ownership that drives business growth, it's just the tip of the iceberg what we've delved into today. But if you want to learn more about the bespoke workshops I've mentioned earlier, and the corporate training we can provide for your teams, then get in touch with us via this link in this chat and book yourself a free consultation call today. A final challenge for the team.
So challenge for this week is pick the most high performer in your team, schedule 20 minutes and just use the S.P.A.C.E framework on them this week.
And see what results it will bring, because I want you to now be the leader that builds leaders.
Right. So Michelle, we have some Q&A questions.
Well, I love this bit. I actually love this bit because this is...
Yeah, it's really good. I think it's very interesting and also a great learning point from us and our clients that we've worked with in the past. So the first question is, I have a high performer here who is very technical and brilliant, but they are terrified of letting go of their tasks because they don't trust the team and they don't trust anyone else to do the job just as good as them. How do I coach them through that fear?
That's a really good question, isn't it? Because I guess that happens a lot amongst teams where people don't feel they can delegate that task
And
because
let
they
go.
don't, and let go. The fear of letting go, the fear of someone else doing that role,
And getting the glory potentially as well.
is that if it goes right, when it
Yeah.
goes right. But that fear, what they've got to do is, it comes through training.
Mhm.
You can only train someone up and coach them to be able to do that role and show them how you would do it in order that they can then do it when you're not there. But you have to address, what is the fear? Is it the fear of someone else doing a job and they become replaceable?
Mm.
Is it a fear of a trust issue?
Letting go, that no one's going to do it as
No
good
one's,
as them.
yeah, that. So you have to get to the root cause of what the fear is. If the fear in this case is they don't trust their team to do it as well as they could, then it's a training issue. Then they need to, the person who they're developing, they need to be sat with them and train them, create a standard operating procedures manual, put your systems in place, so it becomes a step-by-step instruction guide to know that they can't fail when they do it, because the system is there.
But also,
so it's a system problem.
But also letting them know that it's okay to fail and giving them that free rein to try and to make those adjustments along the way.
It is, but if the training is there in the first place, there's less likelihood to fail.
Yeah, but it could happen.
But that's how you build trust.
Yeah.
So if trust is the issue, that's how you build trust. Sit with them, train them, grow them, nurture them, and give them guidance, and then let them go.
Okay. So the second question is, our company culture rewards being the hero who saves the day. How do I start shifting the mindset when the organization still values the firefighter over the architect? So the person who is constantly doing everything is there to be the bottleneck instead of somebody who's creating a system and making it sustainable.
Yeah, that's a cultural issue. That's an organization cultural issue. And it's coaching the people at the top, so it becomes top down, that we're building leaders at every level. Because we don't want people who just firefight, who's just the heroic doer. The business is not sustainable, because what happens to that heroic doer when they're not there? So it's a cultural, organizational systemic problem where we need to build leaders at every level. And we've got an amazing training package on that too.
Okay. The next question is, I want to focus on executive coaching, but my inbox and my boss are constantly demanding doer tasks. How do I find the time?
So that goes back to, communicating and the organization, your boss, understanding your needs. Because perhaps the boss doesn't understand that you even know you want to go into executive coaching and become the next level. So it's all about communicating what your needs, what your goals, what your desires are, particularly on an annual basis. A review, appraisal time is good to do that. But making sure you're both in alignment with the goals and the vision, and is that business the right place to develop you into where you want to be? So if you're just being bombarded with inbox and doer tasks, and your boss doesn't know that you actually want to go into executive coaching, it's a communication problem. And then when they do understand that, they need to set aside some time within your working pattern to support that executive coaching development.
Brilliant. The next question is, what if they don't actually want to become an executive? What if they just want to be an individual contributor?
Conroy, you're a big one on this, because our passion is people, and our passion is always developing people to be the best they can be. And we do that for our own teams. But like we come across it, don't we? There's some people who don't want executive leadership. They don't want growth. They just want to go home and not think about it anymore. And we're not there to say everybody should grow, or you're just stagnating, or you're not progressing. Some people don't want to, and it's about understanding that too, and not applying the pressure on training them up. But actually, what you could do, and what you do in that, when you see potential in someone to be that executive thinker, to move away from just doing, you plant the seed and have that conversation, and then see how they want to take it forward.
Yeah, and it's also about the culture within the company. So every company have their own culture. Like the culture here at this company is all about growth. So when we recruit people from day one, they are told specifically what this company is all about. It's about helping people. Everything that we do in this business is about serving and creating sustainable change and empowering people. So to be able to fill others' cup up, you need to make sure your cup is overflowing. So we invest a lot in our staff, ourselves. So it's very, very clear from the onset. So when people join your organization, they know where they stand. And what tends to happen is when people come to our business after a couple of weeks, months, they're like, actually, you are what you say you are.
And it's funny that because I'm thinking of the people who didn't last in the organization is because they weren't ready for the growth. They didn't want the growth, and the growth became a conflict for them. So when we delivered mindset empowerment, they weren't ready to receive it.
And that's okay.
But it just means that we're not the organization for them, and they move on and find something else.
Yeah, and then on the flip side,
the people who are hungry for that, generally our business becomes a stepping stone because we inspire, we raise aspirations, and they move on to something much bigger and better. But actually, and again, I've got to say this because I had a conversation with a colleague in this team that said, spoke about actually people don't understand that there's the ability to grow here. And we are yes people. We will say yes to ideas, yes to developing business, yes to giving people more money and giving people opportunities, because but what people don't tend to know in this, this development space, is they think they have to, we become a stepping stone, they think they've got to go elsewhere, when actually it's right under their nose, they can develop something here for themselves.
But there's two parts to that. It's about understanding what value are you adding to that business. So if you're going into a company, I'll give you an example. We coached a leader within a company, and once we learned the value that he was bringing to the company, he was generating, I think, £2 to £3 million
of business
into that company on his own, and he was on £100,000 salary. So through the coaching, we then said to him, actually, you can either do two things. You can go and set your own company up and stop working 100 hours, 80 hours a week and create your own because you know this inside out. Or two, you go and ask for shares within every money you bring in. You ask for 5 or 10% of what you bring in. So now you're not just an employee, you are now a shareholder within the business because you're adding that much value. So it's helping people to understand the value you are bringing into that business. But it is different if you're just salaried and you feel you're not adding that value. So it's very difficult to go to your boss and say, "Oh, give me a pay rise." Actually, how much value do you feel you bring to that business? So it's understanding those things to have those kind of conversations
and incentivizing them, isn't it? So having those coaching conversations around what, like you said, 10% of the monies you bring in, you'll get a percentage.
So the next question, my high performer thinks they're doing great because they're hitting their targets. How do I tell them they need to shift their mindset without discouraging them?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a very tough one because if you have a high performer that's doing great and hitting their targets, it's very vague.
Their mindset?
I think that's a great mindset. I think you're hitting your targets, you're doing well. It's all depends on.
Is it a case of them hitting their individual ceiling of excellence? So they're performing, they're hitting their targets. So the question for me as a leader would be, how do I now stretch that employee to go beyond just hitting their targets? Yeah. What else can they do? If they're finding it easy, they've got a great mindset, they're coasting, it's easy for them, they're hitting targets, is now what next?
Stretching them.
How do we develop them? How do we take them from the...
Because it's too easy for them.
It's easy.
And if you have people within your team where the job is very easy, this is where you actually have a great person there. It's about stretching them and giving them more responsibility because they could help really scale your business.
But they could help leverage because it then becomes, they become the coach to other members in the team.
To become hitting their target.
Again, true leverage.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you, Michelle, for today. It's been very informative, and I hope you guys have taken something from this. As Michelle said, if you just want to reach out to us, you can have a great introductory call with our team and just hear you out and listen to what we have on offer that could help you guys get to the next level.
So thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you, Conroy.